Thank you. I'll call this meeting to order. Everyone's here, I can see, so there will be no excuses. Adoption of the minutes. Is there a motion, any errors or omissions in the October 6th minutes or anything to reconsider there? And being none, a motion to approve the minutes of the October 6th meeting. Dan, please. That motion, all in favor of approving the minutes of the October 6th meeting, that's carried. Thank you. We'll have a call for post-agenda items. Are there any post-agenda items? Matt, I think you have some.
Yeah, if we could add post-agenda item for reviewing the Agricultural Service Board resolutions, which just came in yesterday. Todd can speak to that potentially when he's down here in a minute, as well as MDP policy review. Jeff will come in and speak to arranging a meeting time to review MDP policies. And Ariana.
Sorry on that one. Jeff sent an email saying that that one can be withdrawn because Zachary arranged it via email.
Thank you. Any other post-agenda items or a motion to approve adopt the agenda as presented? Amanda, all in favor of that motion, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Question period. Are there any questions or notices of motion? Seeing none, with regard to our agenda, we have a delegation at 11 and then public hearings at 11:30. So we will defer some of the front end of our meetings points and move down to item number 10.1, Agriculture Services Business Policy Review. Mr. Todd Green, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Congratulations on all your new and extended posts from your organizational meeting this morning. It was enthralling listening. No, I can't nap because every once in a while somebody will say my name and I have to start paying attention again. Anyways, thank you for having me today. Quick policy reviews. I think reviewing policies for relevance and effectiveness is always a good idea. You'll note that some of our policies haven't been reviewed since 2016, which is that's a fair jag. It's good, especially with new council, to take a look. So I only have two for you today. The first one is the operation of the Agricultural Service Board. This is kind of in part on how we established the Ag Service Board for the county. We've had an Ag Service Board since the mid-50s. And we've worked, I think, diligently within the confines of policy to help landowners prosper in a relatively weed-free area with minimal pests and general great management practices. I don't think we can take all the credit for that stuff. We have amazing landowners in our county, and they get a lot of that credit for sure. But this policy, I mean, you can see it. It's direct. It's clear language. It's not excessive by any means. The only thing that I changed from the original 2016 when we were looking at it, just the number 2, I just added that the Reeve will assume the role of ASB chairman as part of their duties. We used to have Ag Service Board meetings specifically. The Reeve was the chairman of the Ag Service Board in that regard. Outside of that, general duties as the ASB chairman would be meeting like once a year, usually before the South Region Conference, Ag Service Board Conference, which is next week. But we haven't ran that day before meeting in a fair number of years. So there's not a lot of other wonderful duties for you, Mr. Reeve. And then if we just want to rock on to the next one or do all one motion, is that what we want to do, or one at a time? Some discussion.
Thank you, Todd. Are there any questions? Holly, please.
I was simply going to move that we adopt policy POL 003-22.
Thank you, and I will accept that motion. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please indicate. That is carried. Thank you. And with that, we will move on to the shelter belt.
Perfect, thank you. And another a great policy that's seen some change over the last number of years, but not for some time, I guess. But in 2013, we all might remember when PFRA stopped their shelter belt program in Saskatchewan, where they were planting trees and they would give them out for free to landowners. So at that time, council was not interested in having a specific budget allocation for landowner shelter belts. Shelter belt tree planting quickly dwindled after that. We used to plant, when I first started, upwards of 25,000 trees a year. Now we'll be lucky to have people ask for any support. So it's unfortunate, but that's kind of all part of it. Trees are expensive when you're planting field shelter belts of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 6,000 trees. When they're up to $5 a piece, it becomes a significant investment. We absolutely, through this policy, would help anybody that orders seedling trees that wants us to help them plant it. We would 100% do that, and I think that we're always interested in helping in that regard. You'll note in this policy, the one thing that I did add was the Eastern Irrigation District and Partners in Habitat Development Trees section. We have historically helped the EID with any plantings that have similar goals as us. So field shelter belts, anything around a feedlot for, I don't want to call it air quality, but it does help with air quality. Anyways, those kinds of things we've always helped them, but it was never really within this policy. So I thought in order to guide staff beyond, Todd saying that we should help the EID, it would be good to have that within this policy. Yeah, that's about all I added. Municipal services trees was changed from public works trees, which was just something we missed in the 2016 rendition of this. And yeah, I think it's generally a clear, concise, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Are there questions? Neil, please.
Not a question, but I think it's fantastic. I'll make the motion to adopt the policy.
Thanks. I'll accept the motion, but there's a comment first and some questions then too.
I'm just wondering, because we've had the EID do some shelter belts for us, are they planning on continuing in the near future? Has there any discussion about their program?
Yeah, and I can't speak too much for that program, I guess. The only thing I know is that they're limited on their labor resources more than maybe their financial resources. But they do 3 to 4 big things a year, I believe, is kind of their goal, and they have a long list of landowner applications to do those. So it's as far as I know, there's no shortage of work for Dan and his team. And that's kind of why we decided last year we would send some labor resources to help, because they were just backlogged and they just need some help putting mulch down. So it was fun 2 days for our crew to help out.
Good.
Sorry, that was just last year did that?
Yes.
But not this past summer, you mean this past
Sorry,
summer?
2022, yeah.
Oh, okay.
2022, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
For Todd, we're working on interim budget right now, and for council, we've spent a lot of money cleaning dirt out of ditches, and I can't help but wonder if this is an opportunity to consider throwing some additional resources at shelter belts. I don't know if that's something council wants to entertain, but if we get a feel for that today, we might throw a line in the budget to throw some cash at purchasing trees. Man, we have spent a lot of money cleaning out ditches. The administration for enforcing the Soil Control Act is a big investment too. I can't help but wonder if your money's better spent on carriganas and other kinds of trees.
Thank you for that, Matt. Neil, you have a comment?
What are you thinking, Matt? Like 100,000, 200?
I don't know what to think. So if I got a sense from council today that it's maybe something you want to explore, I'd pass the buck to Todd and he could propose a few things for an interim budget, which is a few weeks away anyways.
Come back to us at that point before we approve the budget. I personally think that's a pretty good idea, because if you look at the way the landscape has changed with irrigation advancement and technology, different pivot technology basically being incorporated. There's a lot of shelter belts and probably more trees being taken out than we're losing ground on that in terms of the certain dynamic of our region. So I think that's actually a pretty good thing to look at and fairly proactive. Greg, please.
Todd, is there any issues with our drainage ditches and things like that in the hamlets? Is there any room for planting trees in some of the hamlets? I know that there are sometimes snow belts, or we put snow fences up in the hamlets in order. Is there any cost effectiveness to maybe have a row of trees or caraganas in those areas? Has that been looked at?
Go ahead, Todd. Yeah.
That's a good question. Most of our hamlets, we don't see a lot of extra space. I could see there being some benefits in maybe a hamlet like Lake Newell Resort, where there is more open space. We don't own a lot of land in those locations either for municipal government type programs, but there might be some partnership opportunities in those for sure. We do plant like the TD trees. We've worked with Scandia before, and there was a proposal to work with Tilly, but those are more bunching of trees, more landscape type trees, not necessarily shelter belt for wind.
I think that part of the program could also be recommendations or look carefully at varieties in terms of what's appropriate to plant in certain locations. I'm pleased to have lived long enough to have planted some trees too close together. and but I'm pleased to have lived to see the day when they were too close together. but also have seen some trees encroach onto some infrastructure that couldn't handle the tree, and so then you have to cut the tree down or you lose the infrastructure and specifically pivot. So and just a reflection of advice to myself even to plan properly with regard to how you do that. So I think that's probably if there can be variety selections that are conducive to that sort of application, I think that's good, which I'm sure there are. So Holly?
Yeah, in terms of tree selection, Dan is quite the expert on that. He suggested Saskatoons. What a fabulous thing. In a couple of years, I'm going to have massive Saskatoon crop. I'm looking forward to that. Fight the birds for him. But having put up 3 major shelter belts in the last, 20 years, and having, you could have warned me. And having, I think these trees are a wonderful program. I certainly support trees. In terms of helping with our ditch problems, I'm not sure that would work because the people who are blowing the dirt are often the ones who are trying to get every single acre in cropland, and they've taken out a lot of trees that have caused some of those problems, but I guess that's another issue. And watering. I know of some shelter belts that ED planted that completely fell apart because the biggest issue with anything you're planting, of course, is water. So you need a commitment, for example, like Newell Resort, some good soul who says, yes, I love trees and I will water them. Because if that's the big challenge, is getting landowner buy-in to keep the watering going. But all those things being said, I would certainly support looking at a program like that because the EAD can only do so many, and yes, we're definitely losing lots of trees.
Yeah, all fantastic comments. I think the easiest part about a shelter belt is planting it. Everything else is the hard part. Maintaining the weeds, watering them to keep them alive. That's the hard part for sure. So planting is the easiest. But yeah, if that works for you guys, I'd be happy to bring something back. I'll talk to Dan and see where he sees some limitations.
Okay.
And maybe a cooperative program would be a good way to go.
And really for soil conservation, often just a low bush, rose bushes even won't grow tall, but they'll reduce soil drifting. Lynette, you had a comment. Okay, thank you. We don't need a motion on this. This is just discussion. But we do need a motion with regard to the shelter belt program, right?
Well, maybe Yeah, maybe let's leave it open just in case there would be some change.
Okay.
In how we partner with the EID or how the program would, because currently it's written that we don't pay for trees. So if we're going to change that approach after some research, then let's just leave it open if that's okay.
That sounds good, sure. Okay,
Thank you for the comments.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, do you want to take us through the Ag Service Board resolutions that have been recently come onto your desk?
I can sure try. I've asked Jeff to come in because he knows a lot more about solar installations and the process for that. So I know you guys probably haven't had a great amount of time to read these. So without getting into too much of the whereas statements, the first one from the County of Warner is asking that when federal and provincial governments approve large-scale energy developments, that they consider local environmental conditions and the policies that the local municipality has in place on their development, through their permitting process. Now, when I go through the background work that the County of Warner has done on this, it sounds like, me and Jeff talked about this morning, and I guess we haven't had these same experiences through our processes. So it was maybe difficult to come up with, where we would recommend anything on this. But the County of Warner, they had some issues with stripping topsoil. They had some wind erosion issues. They had some soil degradation. They had a lack of cover, and within that, invasive weeds were highlighted when a large-scale solar development was approved by their local planning committee with conditions. So their conditions included a specific grass mix, a combination of chemical treatment and mowing, the schedule of the known weeds in the area. So when the approvals came back from the federal government, they said that the developer was not allowed to spray chemicals and altered the grass seed mixture. So with the federal government approvals for stripping of topsoil, they have experienced wind erosion, soil degradation, and invasive weed issues due to the lack of ground cover. But if the conditions of County Warner's approval were upheld, these issues would not be minimized. So it sounds like there was a disconnect in Warner from what was recommended at the local level versus what was approved at the federal, provincial level. Does that sound like what I'm?
Thank you, Todd. Holly, you have a comment or a
Well,
question?
I'm kind of confused because the solar projects, unless it was on Crown land, are approved provincially, aren't they? Like our approvals are coming in provincially. So this must have been on Crown land, which is a whole different piece of material.
Yeah, and as we kind of read through a little bit, it talks about the environmental impact assessments because it was a large-scale project, and that's where the federal government got involved because of the size of the project. So the environmental regulations of higher levels of government is triggered by large-scale developments through the environmental impact assessments in both provincial and federal. The environmental impact assessment is a process to predict the impact of project on the environment before they are carried out. So, in Alberta, projects may trigger provincial or federal environmental impact assessment depending on what matters the project will touch on. Just trying to weed out some stuff here. In addition to the provincial environmental impact assessments, current federal impact assessment process is based on the Canadian Environmental Assessment Act. So the federal government developed regulation to designate physical activities that automatically trigger a federal impact assessment. These clauses are highly important to municipalities as numerous municipality projects may contain one or more of these impacts. Dams are a good example. Maybe I wasn't as ready to discuss these as I thought, Matt. And maybe Jeff can help a little bit on the local processes that we've gone through.
Jeff, go ahead.
I again, like Todd, I haven't had a lot of time to go through these, but I think the one thing that sticks out to me is the there's an overarching regulator to this, and then Alberta Environment and their environmental impact assessments, as well as what it looks like here, the federal government and their environmental impact assessments, kind of kick loose impact requirements when specific criteria are met. I had a short read on the website there, like Councillor Johnson mentioned, Crown-owned land, Crown-funded project, large-scale project. They mentioned dams and such in here. So I think overarchingly, I mean, we want the provincial and federal levels of government to collaborate and corroborate with the local municipal government, because we're boots on the ground. We know what's going on here. We know soil conditions, we know climate conditions, things like that. Now, a little bit more kind of background on this whole application process is probably necessary to truly understand how it rolled out because of the overarching regulator being the AUC. There is a requirement for a large-scale industrial solar applicant to collaborate with the municipal government prior to receiving AUC approval. And my guess is that prior to receiving AUC approval, these federal and provincial impact assessments would also need to be completed for the AUC to approve the recommendations in there. So previously, when we first started receiving these solar applications, we had solar companies attending the county before they'd been to the AUC, before they'd been anywhere. Solarcraft, the Castle Solar Project original was one example, and we approved that, and then they went to the AUC, and that kind of got blown apart at the AUC level. After that, we were kind of went into a little bit of research mode and got direction from Brownlee, like, hey, here's the process. You have strong policy, you have good information in your land use bylaw, in your MDP, in your intermunicipal development plans, whatever you need to direct large scale solar development. And a requirement of them applying to the AUC is going to be that they've proven they've communicated with you, or they're following their plans as part of their public engagement process. It sounds here to me, just reading this, like maybe the County of Warner approved the project prior to it receiving AUC approval. Now, the process that we go for now, we require AUC approval before we're going to approve a development permit for a large-scale solar application. As part of that AUC approval, Maria has the ability to register as an intervener and provide input on that public participation side. So, as it goes through the process, and it's onerous and it's tedious and it's time consuming, it was a 2-day public hearing for the Brooks North Solar Farm online when that happened. But they had the opportunity to provide input. We've never had anybody come in and say, we want to strip off a quarter section of topsoil, install solar panels. These companies are coming here trying to drill or pound piles capable of holding solar panels and supporting solar panels without doing any disturbance to avoid these such situations. You know what I mean? So maybe their project plan and coming in and stripping a quarter section or 2 quarter sections of land triggered that environmental impact assessment. And then I'm not sure how the collaboration with the local government went from there, right? And I think that is the crux of the issue, is maybe the order of operations of how this happened. Don't get me wrong, we don't have much to stand on once the AUC approves something. And like I say, all we can do is build strong policy. But long story short, yeah, we'd love for the provincial and federal governments to collaborate more with us.
Thank you. Greg?
Would it be something that we should put in our policy that we have some say in how the soil is reclaimed, or how grasses and things like that are not necessarily specifics inside the policy, but that we can direct the policy towards our team to advise on how these things are done, so that we don't come up with that situation? Sounds like they had no municipal or had no local input at all in regards to that. So I don't know if that should be part of policy or not.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Holly and then Kelly.
So thanks for the explanation, Jeff. That actually helped a lot reading through this. But given the resolutions, I don't think supporting any of the resolution goes against anything we've talked about in this council. I think that the resolutions seem clear and just a lot of partnership, working better, making sure they're consulting with local government and not just themselves, which can happen with, certainly with the AER, I know that one. So I think the resolutions themselves have good reasons to support. We don't have the same problems, but looking at more partnership and more consultation with municipal government is never a bad thing.
Okay, thank you. Kelly?
I was going to say similar comments. This is their experience. We haven't had this experience, but as far as I'm concerned, we haven't. And so unfortunate for them, but definitely questions that we can ask when solar comes in. Are you planning to strip? You know, different details like that, but I have no problem with this first resolution.
Okay, thank you, Neil.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it either. Just for information, most of these items are dealt with in the contract that the solar company signs with the landowner. Yeah, it's all there.
Okay, thank you. Are we ready to move on to the next one? I guess this is Holly, go ahead.
Neil, that actually gets a question in my mind. If it's a matter, some have landowner education as well, because if you don't know anything, you're an absent landowner, and they ask to put in, I go, oh, okay, you'd never even think of that, right? So that's an interesting point to consider as well for our future dealings with these projects.
Okay, thank you. Do we have time to take the next one? Sure, let's go.
Land and Property Rights Tribunal. And I guess the idea with bringing these here today was just because not everybody is going to the South Region Ag Service Board conference next week. So just kind of to get a feel of it was kind of leaning more towards yay than nay when we have to vote next week to push them to the provincial Ag Service Board conference.
My sense is of the first one that we're approving.
Yeah, it felt good. It felt very positive for a yay. So this next one from the County of Wheatland on the Land and Property Rights Tribunal. Anybody in here that's a landowner has probably had dealings with an oil and gas operation, contract negotiations at some point in time. I think with Wheatland, they want to establish a task force with, Ag Service Board members, ag producers, experts in ag science, agronomy and business, as well as representatives from the oil and gas industry, to conduct a review, full review into the function and mandate of the surface rights components of the Land and Property Rights Tribunal as directed by related legislation, with a focus on matters of or related to contract negotiations being paid by the energy regulators, implementation of mandatory mediation prior to the Land and Property Rights Tribunal application, improved timeliness of applications, and the clarity of terms used in the Surface Rights Act. So they're looking for a task force to be made. And I think, that's a relatively easy ask. I don't know who they're going to have to, sign up to be on the task force, or if they had people in mind. And then really reading the background, it sounds like the breakdown in communication between landowners and maybe an oil and gas company that's operating on their land, not able to negotiate a reasonable price for both sides, deal that makes everybody happy kind of thing. And then when that happens, then it escalates to the Land and Property Rights Tribunal, and that costs money for the landowner and the oil and gas company currently, right? And the thought process is that if it's a long drawn out process, the landowner is going to give up and just accept what the oil and gas company has offered.
Right. Polly and then Neil.
I can speak to this one. We are very blessed in the County of Newell to mostly deal with Torkson. They're fabulous to deal with. But Blaine's on the Surface Rights Committee out of Tabor, and a lot of farmers have so much problems. They're not getting their money. They're not negotiating. It's really been hard for a lot of agricultural producers. So you know, we're very blessed, but I would certainly suggest we support this. There's people who are really having a tough time.
Okay, thank you, Holly. Neil?
Yeah, I kind of echo what Holly just said, but the provincial government steps in right now. All the farmers that say they're not getting paid, they all get paid. The government pays them. They just have to do the paperwork.
That process is long, it's arduous, it's not, the government said it's easy, it's difficult. It's not an easy process at all.
It's not that bad. We had Aries Resources on our place. I've done that twice. It might take you half an hour, but this sounds like a bunch of whining to me.
I'm not so sure. I think what they're suggesting is establishing a task force to review all of the issues, and part of that would be an assessment of how big is the problem and how are we going to resolve it, right? Rather than us having to adjudicate it here. This is just a task force to take this on and see where we can go with it, which I think is relatively efficient for most of us, recognizing that there is some sort of an issue here from time to time, maybe. I don't know. Did you have another comment, Neil? Or, no? Okay. So, are we generally favorable to this? Dan, please.
Yeah, it seems favorable. I just would have questions as to who's creating the task force, who's organizing it, there's details about it that are left out. I'd be curious to know what the answers to those are. But I think the option or the opportunity to ask those questions would be at the Ag Services meeting coming up, you said, right? All right. I won't be there.
Oh, go ahead.
No, that's kind of why we want to talk about a little bit, just to kind of get some feedback. And those are probably good questions. So when it comes from Whelan County, they're suggesting different participants or participant groups. But then when it goes to provincial, they're still going to ask for those groups. So we might find a really good landowner that has experience in this. We might find a really good Ag Service Board member. We don't necessarily want to pinpoint names specifically, I don't think. Like maybe we don't want Dan Short on the committee. I don't know.
It'll be led by Provincial Ag Service Board group will spearhead this basically and get it organized. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Seeing no further discussion, we'll go ahead. Was it just those two? Oh, Matt, please.
And Councillor Short, thank you, reminded me that we actually have an open motion on the table. Councillor Neil Johnson had moved policy 00422, and we had further conversation about deferring it. So either removing that motion from the table or taking a vote on it is in order.
Thank you. We were close to being way out of order here. Thank you for that. Kelly, you have a comment?
I would suggest we come to resolution on these resolutions so that it helps our voters come next week. That's typically how we've done it in the past.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. But with reference to the motion that was, with regard to the policy that we were approving, right? Neil, would you withdraw your motion? Yeah, thank you. Okay. Now we're back on the high road again. Thank you. So let's take these. Pardon me. No, it was a different motion. It was back. Yeah, earlier, prior. Yeah, that was my mistake. It sat on the table without being actioned on, but now we're good. So I'm going to suggest we take the first resolution first that relates to large scale energy developments on agricultural land. Do we have a motion to support or not support that? Holly, please.
I motion that we support that resolution.
Okay, moved by Holly that we support the resolution. Please, all in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. And now, secondly, with regard to the Wheatlands proposal to review the LPRT and set up a task force, what's our direction there with regard to taking it forward? Dan, please.
Yeah, I motion that we it'd be in favor of that.
Okay, thank you, Dan. All in favor of the motion to support the second resolution as well, that's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Todd and Jeff. Yeah, okay. We are now very close to our delegation. Pardon me. Ellen, please. Go ahead, Ellen.
Arno, I'm just wondering if we need some two representatives that are going to vote for us on our convention coming up.
Do we need two people for, we have two votes at that? Okay. Who will be our representatives? Who's attending? On next week, Tuesday, right? Okay. Okay, I'm not, and Greg is not, so, and Dan is not. So, do we want to appoint our official representatives to vote? Kelly?
I'm just not 100% sure that we only have two votes. Todd would know, and he just left the room.
Okay.
I can't recall at our South Zone meeting, just two? Okay. I know at convention, the big convention, we only have two for sure. That's South Zone.
We can come back to this later in the meeting. We'll table this for the moment, eh? Okay, thank you. At this point, I would welcome Bruce Dick to come to take a chair at the table. You've got a presentation to make. Welcome to our meeting, Bruce, and I will, we'll all introduce ourselves. I don't know if you know everybody in the room, but Neil, why don't you begin?
Morning, Neil Johnson, Division 10.
Good morning, Amanda Philpott, Division 8.
Good morning, Bruce.
Good morning, Greg Screever, Division 5, Lake Newell Resort and Castles.
Good morning. I'm Kelly Chrisman, and I'm from the west side around Bazzano, Div 6.
Good morning, Bruce. Welcome.
Good morning, Matt Fensky, County Administrator.
Good morning, Holly Johnson, Division 4, Scandia, Rainier, and Bow City.
Good morning, Adina Scandrup, Division 2, the area around Tilly.
Good morning, Dan Short from Division 1, Rolling Hills area.
Hi, I'm Lynette Kopp, Division 3, Patricia Millicent.
Ariana? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Hi, Ariana Nielsen, Executive Assistant.
Sandra Stanway, Brooks Bullison.
Okay, and, yep, right. Okay. Welcome, Bruce. Oh, there.
Okay.
Yeah. When your light's on, everyone can hear you.
Do I turn it off occasionally?
You can leave it on. Yeah.
Okay. So, nice to meet you all. I recognize quite a few of you, but not all. So I think you have the letter that I presented to council. Now, I don't know if I need to clarify myself at all, or if that would help. That's why I'm here.
I think maybe just give us a quick summary of the circumstances, and that, I mean, it's in the letter. I see that too, but I mean, I might it's a conversation.
Yeah. Okay. So my folks have a farm in Rosemary. So Ellen is our representative there. I live in Dutchess myself, but I'm now in charge of the affairs of the farm. My folks are in the lodge. So I've been following this somewhat, but I've also been preoccupied with my own affairs. So this got by me the rebate thing. I understood, as it says in the letter, that I called back in, I believe it was July. It was foggy. I'm not 100% sure, but I was told the rebate was going to be dealt with later. So I knew through the ads that the deadline for the sign up was, I think it was August, but then it had been moved to the end of September. But there was no mention about rebate, and I've never had any information about rebate or was told of when it would be. Again, I haven't had my ear to the ground either. But then when I called on the 6th, assuming now this is later than the deadline, that I would inquire about the rebate and take care of that matter. But then was told that the deadline was also the 30th of September, which I did not know or could find information on, or readily find information on. So I'm just asking if you would still consider me applying for the rebate.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. Are there questions? Kelly, please.
So to staff, is this applicant, does this land qualify for rebate, and how much would that rebate be?
I don't have the information in front of me, but I do know Bruce, and I worked with him through the registration process. He did register after we had left Rosemary, Division 7, which was early on, Contract 2, right after Duchess, and before the date that we offered the $1,500 incentive. So by the term set by council at the meeting in February, I believe, he would qualify for that refund, and his refund amount would be $6,200 to get him back down to that $1,500 from the $7,700.
Okay, thank you. Holly?
Could you refresh my mind, Jeff, on what kind of advertising we did for the rebates?
The rebate was advertised initially online. I cannot say for sure whether or not we ran an ad in the paper, but we did discuss it over the radio station and pushed it on the local radio networks. And I see Matt nodding, so I believe we did at least get a few ads into the local newspaper as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? Ellen, please.
And Bruce, do you have social media that you follow from the county?
No, I like Twitter and stuff like that. No. My wife does, but she's not on this radar. Yeah, good.
Okay. Any other questions? Kelly, go ahead, please.
So by approving a late application, we would be setting a precedent here. I mean, we set a hard deadline at the beginning of the approval of that program, and we have not extended that deadline from the beginning of this laydown of that program. So I'm a little concerned. How long will we, if we do? I sympathize with you, Mr. Deck. I do. Having said that, I put yourself in our position, and when do we end the deadline? I mean, how do we cut this off? There's not, it's not like you were out of country or infirmed or any other reason. I find it difficult to make a break. It's a hard one. setting a precedent going forward.
Okay, thanks. Ellen, please.
Well, I don't know if it's going to set a precedence. I think this is quite a unique case. I don't think Bruce was negligent. He called, and at the moment there probably was no deadline imposed by council yet, or you weren't told as such. Then you were told we're going to deal with it later. So you thought that the deadline was for the rural water application, correct? And since you're not on social media, you don't live in my district. You don't. I think he wasn't negligent in this case, and I think he was genuinely confused about the dates. And I think real representatives of our ratepayers, and I have no problem with granting this particular request.
Thanks, Ellen. Neil?
Do you live in Dutchess or in the county?
In the town.
So you're kind of out of the loop
Yeah,
as
no,
far as the county stuff goes and looking after an elderly parents.
yeah.
Yeah, I sympathize. I agree with Ellen.
I think too, what is unique here is the fact that you did call in to inquire about the rebate, but if I understand your discussion correctly, there wasn't clarity with regard to how it was going to be handled at that point.
I thought maybe they were thinking later that maybe they take my name and number or something
Yeah.
to notify me when.
Okay, thanks. Holly?
Jeff, with the number of people who were eligible to apply for rebate, it was about 50% of people who have applied for that rebate, right? So how many more people, how many potential more could come forward if this was extended?
So this is a good question. I don't have my Microsoft Teams in front of me, but I would say you're right. About 50% of the people eligible applied for the rebate. I think there was in the 24 to 26 range of people that were eligible, something like that. So we might be into the 10 to 14 range of people who didn't apply before the deadline that would still be eligible.
Interestingly, to me, if we know exactly who is eligible for this, from a communication perspective, I wouldn't see why we wouldn't contact them individually with a letter. And if we want this to happen, why wouldn't we proceed with that? I mean, that would be one argument I would make. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think one of the complicating factors is the amount of time that has passed from the original applicant. So I don't know, Jeff, if you want to speak to that. Like, having heard that, I'm thinking, why don't we just cut checks to everybody on the list and be done with it?
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that a little bit. I know we rediscussed this refund program and refund scenario a number of times with council, and we really stuck to the original motion that was made, which was just great because that provides clarity and consistency. We did not reach out and contact people. It was pretty clear during our discussion that we wanted people to come in, make the application. We would make a social media push for it. We wanted people to have their receipts and submit those at time of application to be eligible for the refund as well. So we didn't reach out to those people. Say there's a dozen people left and we're talking 6,200 people. So we're talking about, the possibility of about another $74,000, $75,000 kind of liability being there, that if we did reach out to these precise people, is what it would look like. One of the other issues is, we were pretty straightforward on paying the people who purchased the water service. Now, when I look at the list of people that purchased the water service, there are some people who, A, no longer live in the county, B, no longer live at that address that we have on file for them, and C, actually passed away since they've purchased the water service. So we can definitely follow council's direction and make that a bit of a target project to reach out to those people, like I say, at the direction of council.
Thank you. And to be clear, with regard to my comments, I wasn't suggesting that staff hadn't followed up on council's direction. I was more questioning council's direction, to be honest. Adina, go ahead.
So I just have a question just to clarify. So do we know for sure that this property qualifies for the refund?
I do.
Dan, please.
My thinking is the purpose of deadlines is to help facilitate planning and whatnot. For instance, our deadlines on the next phase are important because until we know who's signed up, we don't know what to plan for. So extensions on that changes our planning. An extension on an application like this doesn't change our planning. It's just showing compassion for a ratepayer. Saying that ratepayers really should be paying attention to what's happening at the county for county refunds, and looks like you tried, and I appreciate that. But yeah, the whole purpose of deadline for me makes a lot of sense. In this case, I'd be willing to make an exception and grant the request for a late application. But
Is that a motion?
yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll make a motion that we allow the application for refund approval grant, but the approval to be granted by the staff based on conditions set by council.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion or questions? Ready for the question? All in favor, please indicate. Opposed? Same sign. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
considering this.
Okay, we are on. Neil, please go ahead.
Did we decide to reach out to those other 10, 14 people? Yeah. Okay.
Do we know the number of people? 10 to 14? Okay. Go ahead.
So, and reminder that the people that have sold their properties, they received an increase in their property value as a result of selling it already. So, yeah, we need to just let it lie and let it be.
I'll go ahead, Adina.
Well, I just want to say, anybody who is that concerned about getting their refund, got their button gear, got their stuff in here and got it. If they haven't done it by now, or they're not interested.
Yeah, I'm not, my only concern about this is effective communication. I think in this situation where there was an inquiry made and we didn't follow up, but anyway, I accept the way that we've dealt with this. Neil?
Yeah, I agree. Like all he's doing is helping his parents.
Yeah. I don't go. Okay, let's move on. Okay, we were, should we lift the, what was the item we tabled a few minutes ago was the voting. We don't have clarity on that yet, so I'm not going to lift that from the table just yet. We can check that over. Todd, are you hearing us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Todd, a question came up relative to our previous discussion with regard to the Ag Service Board and the meeting coming up next week. Are we restricted to 2 voting delegates at that meeting in Crow's Nest Pass?
Typically, we have been. They never asked us to outline who our voting members were through registration, though.
Okay, so
I'm not sure what the process that Crow's Nest Pass has outlined.
Okay. I guess in light of that, I'm sure there will be further clarity brought to that when you get down there, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And at that point, I think the delegation that attends the meeting can decide who the two voting members are. I'm certainly fine with that if everyone else is comfortable with it. Okay. Good. We have a public hearing beginning at 11:30, so we have 10 more minutes. We are up to item number 11.1, Rural Municipalities of Alberta Fall Convention, meetings with ministers. Ariana, please.
All right, it's kind of a non-update. I have reached out and heard back from all the scheduling assistants. The only one I've made any progress in is the environment and, sorry, let me just open my, environment and parks. So they want to narrow it down because you're only allowed to have a maximum of 10. So I sent out an email yesterday asking for 3 to 4. I had Dan, Greg, and Neil respond that they wanted to attend. Does anyone else want to attend this meeting, or is that sufficient?
Holly, go ahead.
It's not that I want to attend. I was curious about, of course, the email's not in front of me. One of the things we're discussing, I didn't really know what that referred to. Can someone enlighten me if they have it in front of them? On what, they're meeting with the Minister of Environment and Parks, but one of the reasons we're meeting, I didn't really know what it referred to. And it's not that I want to go, I just was unclear. I have to find the email now.
Matt,
Yeah, I think the 2 items there was going to be a follow-up on turnaround time for environmental approvals, and then there's kind of this blanket category on grants and grant partnerships, and I think we would walk through that door and invite the minister to partner on the Kinbrook connection pathway, and might be a time to spitball Tillabrook, connecting Tillabrook. I mean, that's something we haven't talked about officially, but Kinbrook connection specifically would be a good partnership for them to be invited to, since it's going to their park.
And why are we concerned about the environmental approvals? What did that spark? I don't remember that.
So the ministry has had a difficult time turning environmental approvals out on a timely basis. So then it holds up our contractors and getting projects done. So, yeah.
Okay, Greg and then Neil.
Yeah, and I just want to talk with respect to Tilbrook. A lot of that land is provincial land, all the way up to the canal bank. And I'd like to just kind of look at exploring the idea of connecting that Tilbrook campground to the aqueduct historical site, just something for people to do. And rather than using the road, highway number 1A. So it is, I think, because it is provincial land already, for the most part, I think there's something could be done there. So.
Okay, thank you. Neil and then Holly.
Yeah, with the recreation minister, whatever they call him, there was a plan, this is getting back 12 years, where the province had a total rejuvenation expansion. They'd have to work with the EID on Newell. They were going to make it world class. Like, it was fantastic. That kind of just died. But we're in a position where there's thousands of people out there. They shut the park down on the weekend. You can't get any more in there. We're desperate for lakefront recreation in this area, and I think we should make them. And we've got the facility out there. All we have to do is develop it.
Okay, thank you, Holly.
I just in support of what Greg said. I've often thought with Tillybrook Campground, the people who go there's not a thing to do. Like, it's just a block. It'd be fabulous if they have a path to go, so it's a really good idea. But Neil, develop what particular for more? I agree there's, in the summer, people can't get to the lake, but where, develop what in particular?
Well, there is a plan that was drawn up that where the ID would have to throw in a bunch of ground and they would develop more campsites all around, basically just a huge expansion of Kinbrook.
Which is a provincial park, so that would definitely involve the government of Alberta. Yeah.
No, it was a cool plan, and then everything just kind of fizzled.
Okay.
But saying that, question for you, Neil, is it campgrounds for one, or just like everyone from Brooks comes out on a hot day, they just want to get to water?
You can't get a campsite out there.
I know, but is it the campsite or is it we need day use?
Well, we need both.
Yeah.
We need day use. We need places to put all these people. Yeah, we need help out there.
Yeah, I think we've got some work to do on this prior to the meeting, but that sounds good.
That's what I wouldn't mind mentioning to them is those multiple levels that don't communicate to each other, that group use area that I don't know if it's ever did get approved, just because the one's not talking to the other and then passing it off to the other guy who says, no, it's his job. It just bounces around forever. They need to get together and actually make their decisions.
Okay. I'm interested to attend that meeting with the group as well, but I think we just need to get our heads together and isolate our communication, and that sounds good. Okay. Are there other considerations? We simply have to wait till ministers are appointed, and sometime probably next week, we might hear.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think we won't be meeting prior to the RMA, so I'm going to suggest that Ariana and Matt will be in communication with us electronically or something, and we can focus the meetings that we have and also what our emphasis is going to be at them. Correct? Is that acceptable, Matt? Okay. Holly, please.
Actually, question for you, Arno, based on your past. If they're appointing new ministers, the meetings are going to go ahead, I take it. How effective are those meetings? You're meeting a minister who's been dumped with a whole portfolio and people coming. Are they going to be very effective this time as compared to other meetings? Well, let's do that. Yeah.
We'll see. That's a very definitive answer, because I don't know. Yeah. I mean, legitimate question. It's going to be questionable, I would think. Ellen, please.
From my experience, the staff members are very well versed usually, and they take lots of notes. So it's still worth it, I think.
Support staff will be fully briefed on what the discussion points are, and that will also help if there's a new minister to inform a new minister. And the only other thing is to make it memorable. So at the end of the day, okay. Any other comments with regard to that? I think we're good with setting that up at the time, amen? Yeah, which we've requested health and agriculture, is that correct? And seniors ministry?
And agriculture, forestry, and rural economic development. 4.
4 of them. Yeah, okay. Let's take the seniors, and go ahead, Matt.
Well, I'm just wondering if we can save you some time, and if we get confirmation from any of those ministries, we'll send an email out and do it that way between councillors. You can wrestle offline for who gets to meet with which minister.
I guess I think there's some obvious people that would need to attend, like with the seniors ministry, Adina and Amanda for sure, who have experience with our front line on that. So I think that's a reasonable approach. Okay, thank you. We'll pick up our agenda later. At this point, I think we're good to go to our public hearing, are we? Or does that have to start right at 11:30? Oh, Ariana, you had a comment?
I think you're supposed to start that right at 11:30, and you got 3 minutes.
Okay. Okay, let's move to 11.2. Ariana, do you have,
This is another non-update. We're hoping to have resolutions by now. They have not appeared, so they will be forwarded via email.
Okay, so that we will also discuss electronically or potentially in Edmonton as well. And 11, joint municipal meeting for December the 15th. We have had information circulated to us with regard to that, and I think an opportunity to respond. What do we need to decide there? Is that a go, or what do we need?
It is a go. It is December 15th. The open house, we're having it at the Heritage Inn, so the city hosts an open house meeting with MLAs and all councils from 4 to 6, I believe, and then the joint municipal meeting continues after that from about 6 to 9. This is just to make sure have December 15th in your calendar. MLA and MP have both confirmed. MLA is obviously going to change, but it's in their calendar. And start thinking about agenda items, and we'll bring this back to a future meeting. If you don't have agenda items now, we can discuss this again.
Okay, I think we have an opportunity to pick that up again in our later November meeting, so that sounds good. Thanks, Ariana. It being 11:30, I will accept a motion to move to public hearing. Dan, please.
Yeah, motion we move to public hearings right at 10:30, 11:30.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of the motion, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. This public hearing is to consider bylaw 2038-2222, Land Use Agreement 008. Maria, please.
Thank you. The purpose of this application is to designate Plan 881163 Block 1 in the southwest of 302216 from Agriculture General District to rural or Residential Rural District, pardon me. The applicant would like to subdivide an approximate 1.7 acre parcel from the existing 6.9 acre parcel. The residual parcel would be approximately 5.16 acres. So the two parcels after subdivision would be 1.7 and 5.16 respectively. There are currently 2 houses on the parcel, and the applicant would like to create separate parcels for each of the houses already located on the property. The Subdivision Authority Bylaw 2018-21 states that the Subdivision Authority may approve one subdivision on an unsubdivided quarter section of land within the Agriculture General Land Use District, and one additional subdivision on the residual parcel. This would be considered the second parcel on this quarter section, but not on the residual parcel, and is therefore not permitted in the Agriculture General Land Use District. In the residential rural district of our land use bylaw, the minimum parcel size is 1 acre. So this district is best suited to accommodate the subdivision of the proposed size for residential purposes. As there are 2 existing houses on the parcel, the density in the area would not be increased. The maximum density in the residential rural district is 1 dwelling and 1 secondary suite. This land use amendment was circulated to adjacent landowners and required referrals, and there were no concerns raised from adjacent landowners. We did receive responses from Alberta Transportation and Pioneer Gas that are included in the RFD. It is recommended by staff that should no objections be heard at the public hearing, that second and third reading be given. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Are there any public comments with regard to this application? Anything online, Todd?
Nothing online.
Okay, thank you. Kelly, go ahead, please.
Question, Maria. This application, how long ago was it that the new house was put on? And was there a requirement for the old house to be demolished at that time?
Yeah.
Can you answer that from records?
I can. You have a good memory. There was a development permit, and I can't remember the year. It was quite a few years ago, for a new dwelling on this parcel, and then a condition of that permit was that the existing residence be turned into storage. So the applicant came in and said that wasn't the case that they were wanting to use this structure, I guess, as a house again. So they have obtained development permits for that structure to be used as a dwelling. So prior to submitting this land use amendment, their parcel is now compliant with the land use bylaw.
Ed Kelly?
So as a follow-up, do we have responsibility in knowing that that vacant house, the house that has been vacant for many years, is suitable for living?
Go ahead, please, Maria.
Yes, as part of that development permit application, we required that building permits were taken out and approved as per the Alberta Building Code.
Okay. Holly, please.
So previously, I was told it was needed to be a shed or storage. Does anybody follow from the county to see if that happens? Because I know in often cases, people are told to take down their old house, and I still see them on the yard, and I believe they're just there. But do we ever check on that?
Go ahead.
We do sometimes require that the applicant give proof that that has been removed. That is on a kind of a case-by-case basis. As far as going back and ensuring things are happening, we've been working on a complaint basis. So if we receive a complaint or we see that something is not compliant, then we follow it up at that time. But we have not historically been chasing things down.
Okay, thank you. Holly?
So when our assessor goes out and they're assessing the house they're looking at, is he looking to see if there's other properties when he's going out and driving around?
Go ahead, Maria, please.
Yes. So on a 5-year basis, we usually will get something from our assessor. So that will flag it. So there is sometimes a bit of a lag, but that's correct. We will be notified of those.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, we can move on. Moving on to 8.3, Bylaw 2039-22, Land Use Agreement 009 Text Amendment. Please, Maria.
Thank you. The purpose of this amending bylaw is to update sections of the County of Newell Land Use Bylaw 2016-21 to further define specific uses in the plan area of the intermunicipal development plan within the village of Dutchess, and also to add clarity to certain sections within the land use bylaw. The following sections are proposed to be amended. Section 2, the development permit process. Section 2, Table 2, development not requiring a development permit. Section 5, the AGEN Agriculture General District, and Section 6, the glossary. County administration proposes disallowing the following uses within the Agriculture General District within the plan area of the intermunicipal development plan with the village of Dutchess. This includes bunkhouse, boat launch, dwelling multi-unit in a Hutterite colony only, park, pit or quarry, and recreation indoor. Administration is also recommending to insert specific subdivision policy specifically for the plan area of the intermunicipal development plan within the village of Dutchess, as well as adding policy to the land use bylaw to clarify development potential on parcels that don't meet the minimum parcel size requirement as stated within the specific land use district, as well as permit requirements for agricultural buildings that are within the Table 2 of Section 2. It is suggested that the maximum density in the agriculture general district be changed to allow a maximum of 4 dwellings on parcels larger than 80 acres and up to 2 dwellings on parcels that are smaller than 80 acres. 1 dwelling would be a permitted use, additional dwellings would be discretionary. Application for additional dwellings would be circulated to adjacent landowners, and the decision to allow for more than 1 dwelling on an agriculture general district parcel would be made by the Municipal Planning Commission. The proposed amendments do not limit development to any greater extent than the previous fringe land use district in our previous land use bylaw. And the amendments provide additional clarity for administration and developers. Thanks. Oh, sorry. We did circulate to adjacent landowners and or affected parties, and there were required referrals. Responses that were received at the time that this RFD was submitted are included. We also received comments of no concern from Wheatland and Cypress County. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments with regard to this land use amendment? Kelly, go ahead, please.
So, Maria, we are basically back to full-on old development plan around the village of Dutchess. Is that correct?
In my opinion, that's correct. That the policy is very similar to what was in the old land use bylaw for that area.
And so just for my clarity, our purpose was to cut red tape. Is that right? Okay. And so we haven't been able to accomplish that in this area. Would that be correct?
Go ahead, Maria.
The purpose of the land use bylaw update was to look at what was happening historically and the approvals that were given by MPC historically, and try to remove some of the, or reduce some of the timelines and reduce the investment by required by people that were trying to develop their property. So that was the intention of the land use bylaw update.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Are there any comments with regard to this land use bylaw? Go ahead, Matt.
I just want to comment on kind of the red tape reduction, which I'm fully behind. One of the things I think we learned in our meetings with the Village of Dutchess is that the circulations are very important, and one of the inadvertent impacts of the changes that we made to the land use bylaw was those would be reduced. So I think that's an important consideration for us. We do have an obligation to circulate. We want feedback from the village, and some of that was absent with the changes that we had made previous. So I'm very happy with the interview meetings have been very productive at getting us to an amendment that it's not exactly the fringe, but it's pretty close. And also just recognizing some of the areas that the village didn't dig in on and did let pass, because there were some of those instances that they gave us a pass. So thanks to the village.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Are there any comments from the public with regard to this? Anyone have any other further comments? Nothing on the electronic media, Todd?
Nothing so far.
Thank you. Any other comments? We have guests from the Village of Dutchess. Any comments that you'd like to make? Go ahead.
Sorry, thank you. Deputy Mayor Deborah Reid-Mickler from the Village of Dutchess. Your Worship, County Council. I would just like to say that the Village of Dutchess councillors are unanimous in their support for this amendment, and thank you to County for reviewing this.
Thank you. That's good information, good support. We appreciate that. Any other comments? Seeing none. A motion to move out of the public hearing is in order. Holly, please.
That's the motion I was about to make.
There we have it. Motion that we move out of the public hearing. All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Thanks for attending today. So we can move to item 9.11. Second reading on bylaw 2038-22. Neil, make that motion. Any further discussion? All in favor of that we approve second reading, please indicate. That's carried. Similarly, item 9.12, Holly, motion to approve third reading.
Third reading, yes, please.
Okay. All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 9.2.1, motion for second reading on bylaw 2039-22. Adina, please. All in favor of that motion, please indicate. That's carried. And similarly, 9.2.2, motion for third reading on 2039-22. Kelly, please. That makes that motion. Thank you. All in favor of the motion, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you. That completes some business that we've worked on for a period of time. So thanks for your attendance here today. Yeah. And we are up to item number 11.4. Request for proclamation of a National Day of the Child. Ariana, please. We just need approval.
Yes, FCSS forwarded the letter. National Day of the Child is November 20th. I believe the letter says they've got a public event planned for the 19th. So they're just looking for someone to make a proclamation.
Okay. Motion to that effect. Kelly? Motion that we approve that date to National Day of the Child. All in favor, please indicate. That is carried. Thank you. Requests for functions of council. Are there any? Lynette, please.
Seeing as I'm still on the library board, we are having a PD day. They're calling it Library Reconnecting. It's a learning day, and they have a guest speaker coming in and stuff. So I was wondering if that could be a function of council. It's on the 24th for me.
So go ahead, Holly.
I move to make that a function of council.
All in favor, please indicate. Just for clarity, as our representative to the library board, is this a necessary procedure each time? Yeah, no, and I'm not sure either. And I guess I'm asking. It's something we can maybe discuss at a later date. But my assumption is that our representatives to these committees. Yeah, no, and I appreciate you bringing it. I'm just wondering if there's a way to streamline this so that, because I think we want our representatives to do what they can when they can. Yeah. Any other comments? Kelly, please.
Just quickly, if ever in doubt, come to council.
I guess, yeah.
That's been the rule of thumb.
Sure.
If ever, yeah, it's right, Ellen. It's just easier to ask for it now than for forgiveness later.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. Any other functions of council requests? Dan, please.
Just a quick reminder that if there isn't a council meeting between the time it comes up and the event, the REIV can give permission in the interim, and then it comes to council. So,
right, just for approval, but basically it goes ahead that way. Yeah, that's good. Okay, right, meeting with Premier Danielle Smith on October 29th. We've been invited to that. Is that do you want that to be a function of council? Somebody make that motion. Neil moves. All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. The Heritage Inn. Yeah. With there will be a number of other municipal representatives there as well. So. Committee reports. Newell Housing Foundation, Adina and Amanda, please. You've provided a report. Yeah, thank you. Grasslands Regional FCSS as well, a report there from Adina. Thank you. Any other further comments or anything to add? No? Okay. How about regional tourism? Same?
I'll just add that I did forward everyone a YouTube link. It's, I understand, about half an hour long. It's about, it's a kind of a Toyota commercial also, but they travel from Dinosaur Cairo Museum through, they stop at Patricia Hotel for supper, then they're in Dinosaur Park for quite a while. It's cute to look at. And there was the other one that I had mentioned before, 48 hours in the county of Newell. If you want the link to that, just let me know.
Okay, thank you. Any questions with regard to committee reports today? If not, oh, I'm sorry. I have an. Okay. Palliser Economic Partnership.
Just a quick note that we are beginning the search for a new executive or new staff person, what you call it, maybe contract executive director. Anyway, so you'll see ads for that coming out in a while. And just a question for Adina, what is the budget? How much we put into the tourism budget? You said how much there's left, but how much does the county put into that? I know we've been through this, I just can't remember.
So I'm not sure how much the county puts in, but this 25,000 that they have that they give out is taken out of it's part of the budget for Brooks Tourism. So we do contribute to it. I couldn't say exactly how much.
Okay, thank you. Joint services, who's reporting? Okay, Shelley?
Okay, I'll start and the guys will add. We had a presentation from both school boards at the last meeting, and it was interesting. Grasslands School division reported that they were down enrollment by 200 students, and Christ the Redeemer reported they were up 4%, which is just over 200. So I guess we know where those students might have went. It was a good conversation. On the Grasslands list is the replacement of the Brooks Junior High, and no timeline, but if that's something of interest to you, we could definitely support Grasslands in that bid for a new school there. Christ the Redeemer reported 70% of their students are ELL students. That's a huge number, right? If you break that down. ELL, English Language Learner. So ESL, English as a second language, I think that fits in the same category, yeah. Bus drivers are needed. If anybody is interested in a part-time job, or you know somebody who is. St. Joseph's, what did I write about St. Joseph's? 48 students, 4 Grasslands. Anyway, we'll skip on down to PEP. Doug Jones is the chair there. That was reported. Power Up was to happen tomorrow. That was canceled due to shortage in registrations. Okay, so that's a go. During budget discussions, it was recommended that we will roll over 2 programs totaling $25,000, but the balance of the budget that has been not consumed will not be charged for at the end of the year. So our contribution won't quite be $180,000 this year. Okay. Newell Vet Clinic has put out a $10,000 reward for the capture of a vet for our area. Isn't that something? So anybody that comes to the area willing to practice veterinary services may qualify for a $10,000 gift through Newell Vet. Referral gift. Oh, okay. So yeah, refer your friends. And reported that $118,000 has been collected towards the $1.2 million project going to Kimbrook Campground. So it needs to go 118,000. Guys, anything you want to add?
Okay, now Matt, please.
Just to circle back around and answer the question about how much do we contribute to Brooks Region tourism, it's $55,000 total, and that's split 50-50 between the county and the city. So we're 27.5 into that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. And Greg, you have a report on Brooks Rec.
Yeah, Neil and I were at the Brooks Rec meeting last night. Just a couple updates. The pathway at Pleasant Park in Brooks is completed, so there is some Brooks pathway work being done, and it's been very well received and used, which has been reported. The issues that the JBS Center was having at lunchtime with kids coming over to fill up the spot and causing havoc and causing some stress on the staff, that's starting to dissipate, and a large portion is because of the participation of the administration at the junior high school with coming over and doing some supervising and just laying it out there that it's important for these kids to behave. So it is getting better, which was a concern last year. There's live streaming at the JBS Center, at the CRA for kids hockey games. That's coming into play. They're just putting it in right now. So grandparents, say from Grand Prairie, can watch their grandkids play, which is pretty cool. I think that's a really, really good thing. And that's about all that I have from that. I don't know if there's anything, Neil, that you have.
Okay, question? Holly? Thanks, Greg.
Just a clarification on that pathway about Pleasant Park. I read that, but I have no idea where that is. Can you help me where that is?
Yeah, it's over in the West End. You know where the West End ball diamonds are? It's kind of in behind there. So it's between the ball diamond fence and the Marshall drain. So it runs, it used to be a shale path there before. So it kind of runs behind the ball diamonds all the way over to, there's that parking lot on the west end. It kind of runs along there. So it's actually quite a good pathway. So.
Okay. Dina, please.
I was just going to say, doesn't it kind of meet up with Evergreen Park too?
Yeah, it does. So there is a bit of a overcross to the road. So it meets up with Evergreen.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? That completes our committee reports, I believe. Anything else with regard to committees? Seeing none. We're down to information items. The minibus monthly report is there for us. Strategic priorities chart is in our notes. Or is there any discussion or any comments with regard to that? Matt, do you have anything to add to any of that? If not, seeing none, it's 12 o'clock. I'm going to suggest we break for lunch and move in camera after lunch. Are you comfortable with that?